Right. It was. They projected 900 million barrels of oil there, and the auction was $1 billion, basically, just under $1 billion in 1969 when oil was $3 a barrel. Now, here in Alaska, under this federal administration, a lease just took place that they raised $2.5 billion on an oil reserve that's projected to have 10 billion barrels in it. In other words, 10 times as much at a price that is like 40 times higher than it was in 1969, and we only get 2.5 times the money. Now, this is the fuzzy math of the biggest ripoff since the railroad barons, and people don't remember that. You know, they controlled all the corridors, so the farmer beats his brains out.
No, they convinced the public. They convinced the public there's no elites, no corruption, and then of course they just totally took over.
Yeah, and what they're doing now is this acceleration of the offshore leasing because it's the biggest giveaway in the history of the country. If we did look at these resources differently in terms of how do we maximize their potential so that the public benefits. Here in Alaska, a lot of people don't know this, but because our oil revenue and what it does, we don't have a state income tax. We don't have a state sales tax.
In fact, the government pays you to live in Alaska.
That's right. In fact, right now our legislature is in special session, and residents that have been here a year at the end of this session are likely going to see a $1,200 check show up for every resident.
And, folks, that's how rich this whole country is. And Mexico has triple the resources of the lower 48, but they're one of the poorest in the world because the elites want you poor as a mode to control you. It's in their own handbooks.
You know, the public resources are enough to supply the national treasury, retire the debt, eliminate income tax for individuals, and tax corporations when they use public resources.
But instead, we have a Federal Reserve that has set up a system where it's impossible to get out of debt. For money to be created, debt is created. It is a total fraud. Let's go to the calls. Right. Mason in Florida, Rusty, James, and others. Go ahead, Mason.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, hey, Alex, I've been wanting to call in for a while, but I'm only 17. I live in Florida. When I first found out about this, I thought, like, not to be rude or anything, but I thought you were crazy and my friend was crazy. Once I saw Endgame and looked everything up, I found out, but ever since then I've been trying to wake people up, but it's basically been like you're some crazy conspirator, you're in some fantasy world.
Hey, listen, I got neocons who on their own websites, because they send me their links, are in the military, and they say the dollar's not devalued, everything's fine. Dr. Begich, what is, I mean, it's like people are in a spell, at least some of them, where they cannot face reality. It seems to be more than denial. I mean, is it that they're so invested in lies they can't admit they were wrong?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it, and it's that idea of never concede a point, you know, and most people never analyze a point, you know, and they bank on that. Well, when people are suffering, and this is what they're not banking on, and people are suffering in this country, and the inflation hasn't even started, I mean, the worst is yet to come, and that, in and of itself, although we hate to see it happen, is what it takes sometimes to wake up the American public.
And you can say it, I can say it. You can say it, I can say it. We told you so.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, and yet the hope is still there because it's not over until it's over, and we still have a chance to take this republic back. And that's the thing. And I think people are feeling this all over the world. You know, when I travel quite a bit. I run into this in Europe. I run into it every place. You know, and when you start to think about it, it's just a different spin on the same formula, which is to enslave the public, to be dependent when we used to be independent. And in this century, we should be independent. Our technologies offer us the potentials that are just incredible. I mean, the solutions are already here. We just need a different political will to bring them into reality.